Back with the WMAY morning news feed. More on that Auditor General's reports of the firearm owner identification and concealed carry license program and the delays that have happened. One of the state senators on the Joint Commission, Legislative Audit Commission joins us now. State Senator Chapin Rose. Senator, thanks for taking time with us and connecting. This is a report that only looks at a couple of years before the pandemic, but people's rights were severely impacted by the incredible amounts of delays there were for processing these things. Did we get to the bottom of anything with this Auditor General's report yesterday?
Well, it shows once again the complete, just utter disaster that the Pritzker administration is in really managing any part of government. And in fact, Greg, what the report showed, and it's kind of interesting because the Pritzker likes to blame the pandemic and the riots as the whole reason for the holdup on the FOID cards. But the reality is, what this report showed is that there was an extreme drop-off between 2018 and 2019 in the timeliness of processing cards. Well, what happened between 2018 and 2019? Oh, that's when Governor Pritzker came into office. So by 2019, in his first year in office, he'd gone from about an 80% timeliness factor down to under half. It was like 48.2% were being timely audited or timely processed. And I guess the real question is, so what happens when the police who are in charge of enforcing the laws don't enforce the law that they're in charge of, which is, getting these things processed? So no, it hasn't, I will tell you that in my state Senate office, this is a daily phone call from angry constituents that have been waiting months, in fact, years. In fact, your co-journalist there in the Springfield area, Scott Reeder, he just got his. It took him over a year to get his. So this isn't just something that's, that Chapin Rose and the Republicans are inventing to get back at Pritzker. It's everywhere. I mean, these guys don't have it figured out. And the audit made several specific recommendations for the state police to take up. And by the way, I would also point out that one of the things in this audit is extremely dangerous, and that is the lack of timely notification to local sheriffs of FOID card revocations for things like orders of protection.
Well, and I wanted to kind of bring this up as well, because that is another major item that showed just how abysmal the process is working or not working, I guess, because it shows that, the FOID card revocations and the capturing of those revoked FOID cards and even CCL cards, capturing or recovering revoked CCL cards, it was at 14%. In 2019,
which frankly doesn't shock me at all, and probably that I think is kind of less concerning to me is the lack of notifying sheriffs and things like orders of protection for potentially violent individuals aren't forwarded to the local sheriffs. But I will tell you this: I think this whole FOID card system is just idiotic on its face. There's absolutely no need for it in this day and age. You already have a federal firearms background check system that takes place when you purchase a firearm. And so the fact that you were, got a FOID card 3.5 years ago says absolutely nothing about who you are as a person today. It really is just needless duplicative redundancy there to mix many metaphors and many terms. It's just ridiculous. There's no reason to even have this thing.
We're talking with State Senator Chapin Rose. He is a member of the Legislative Audit Commission requesting this audit. More than a year ago you requested the audit, but it was only for 2018 and 2019, and it highlights how Illinois State Police are not following the timeliness that FOID card and CCL card applications have to abide by for it to be in accordance to the law. Senator, on the Legislative Audit Commission, of course, this is just one, but there's so many other aspects of COVID-19 that we have yet to get clarity on. One of them, and I'm springing this on you, but is the unemployment insurance trust fund and how much fraud's been paid out.
Yeah, another Pritzker disaster in management of the ship of state. Everybody, the Democrats, Republicans, everybody warned the guy that he did not have sufficient controls in place to prevent the fraud. And in fact, In fact, he proudly reversed many of the Rauner era precautions that were put in place to prevent exactly what is happening here. And that's another audit commission finding that came out earlier this summer, was just how bad this thing is. But even then, that was only the first 6 weeks of the PUA. So we've got another audit, my audit, that was just authorized at last month's Legislative Audit Commission of the entire program, because, the trust fund is billions of dollars upside down, which ultimately is going to fall back on small business owners, which means they're going to have money to, hire less employees or pass it along to their consumers in the form of higher prices. But at the end of the day, how much of this is fraud and how much of this is totally preventable? I mean, this guy is really good at issuing, this guy, meaning the governor, is really good at running around the state issuing press releases and telling everybody how great he is. But then when you peel back the layers, you realize that it's a complete abject disaster at every level of management within the control of the chief executive of the state.
State Senator Chapin Rose with us just for a few more minutes here as we delay news. Appreciate connecting with you on air here on the WMAY morning news feed. Something else I wanted to get your thoughts on. In your jurisdiction, what are you hearing from teachers? What are you hearing from healthcare workers? Got the vaccine mandates that are leading to some people fearful that they won't be able to work at the places that they've worked all their years. What are you hearing on the ground?
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of retirements. A lot of people just saying, that enough's enough. They're not going to go back to work. Certainly not the vast majority, but I will tell you one of the things that I think is very concerning to me as we walk into this, the Biden mandate and the Pritzker mandate is, you can't operate a nursing home on, 15% less staff. And it's not that, it's certainly not that 100% or 50% of the workers are walking out in protest. It's 15 or 20% of the workers. And it tends to be the people who make it work, like the CNAs and the cooks and people, who many of them have already had COVID and said, to themselves, what do I need to get a shot for? I've already got natural immunity. Now, look, I think everybody in this country should be entitled to make their own decision based upon their own healthcare circumstances. And I certainly believe that vaccines are, in fact, appropriate for many individuals. But it's up to the individual to make that decision for themselves based upon their health scenario. But the thing that is scary is, even if you disagree with me, which is your right to do, the fact is we got people walking off the job left and right that are not showing up for work. And healthcare already had a shortage of skilled labor and, frankly, unskilled labor. And, you can't run a nursing home or a hospital on, 10 or 15% less staff. It just doesn't work. And, you're starting to see these large institutions. I read the story yesterday about one out in New York that, laid off a bunch of employees who refused to get vaccinated. Now, is that going to happen in Illinois? I don't know. Is it going to happen in sufficient numbers to make things worse? I would say that it frankly already is. I mean, we've already got a staffing shortage, so any amount of less people that show up make it worse. But, look, I'm we're in uncharted territory here. I believe in personal responsibility and freedom, and I don't believe in the government, really don't believe in the government telling parents what to do with their own kids. That is just, and another one, the governor has effectively seized control of every local school board in the state of Illinois, and by executive fiat. I mean, he's got no authority whatsoever to do it, but all these school districts are, and I don't blame them when I say they're scared to stand up to him. I don't blame them, but for being afraid of him. I mean, the man's a bully, and he's a vindictive bully at that. But the reality is he just seized control of all the local property tax dollars and is now telling your locally elected school board what to do with your money as a property taxpayer. I mean, it's one thing if the democratic process had worked and we'd all gone to Springfield and voted on these things. Then win or lose, you can at least say you had your say. But this is one guy making decisions for everybody. I mean, I remember there was a day, and I'll leave it at this. There was a day as a Republican under Governor Rauner where I stood up and said, "Governor, enough's enough. You're wrong." In fact, there was a day when I actually told him publicly he needed to apologize for some of the things he said and did. Okay. And actually he did. But the point is, as a Republican, I stood up to Governor Rauner on things that I disagreed with him on. All right. The Democrats are nowhere to be found. I mean, they have supermajority control of the House and the Senate, and they've just ceded all authority to J.B. Pritzker. You'd think they'd want to at least preserve their own power and not just sit around there twiddling their thumbs. But they're apparently content to do that. At some point in time, the Democrats need to stand up and say, Governor, this is a democracy. By the way, in a supermajority Democrat Springfield, they're probably going to win the day anyway, okay? But the reality is, at least the people elected to make policy decisions would have made the decision, not the person who's elected to enforce policy decisions, right?
Well, Senator,
this is completely backwards.
On this issue, though, do you think that with veto session coming up, the issue of the Health Care Right of Conscience Act could come up? And what does it say that if lawmakers do bring that up to modify it, why is it now a year and a half to 20 months into this? That's the one thing they're looking to possibly modify.
Yeah, well, I know there's so many things, right? I mean, the Democrats have just let them seize control of our local school boards and stood idly by. And by the way, the crazy thing is virtually all the school boards would have been mask mandated anyway. I mean, the governor's office threatened a doctor in my district who's on a school board, threatened to revoke his professional license, even though he'd already voted to have a plan that would have required masks anyway. But they're going to revoke his license. I don't know why, but they were going to do it. So, the Democrats aren't standing up for anything. We'll see what happens. The governor's demanding they have a vote on the Health Care Right of Conscience Act because I think the governor finally realizes even he doesn't have the authority to overturn that statute. But look, I don't know. I mean, I think that one's a lot tougher. I think there's certainly Democratic members who are extremely sympathetic to the rights that are implicated in the Health Care Right of Conscience Act on certain issues, certain other issues besides COVID. Frankly, I don't think they want to be anywhere near it. I don't think they want to be put in that vice-like position, but the governor's pushing it. We'll see. But I would just simply submit to you, no matter what the outcome, at least it's a democratic outcome, unlike what we have now, which is a dictator.
State Senator Chapin Rose, greatly appreciate connecting, and we'll definitely talk again in the near future. All right, be safe out there.
Thanks, man. Bye.
It's the WMAY morning news feed. Late for news. Kevin Hart standing by.
Fate of the infrastructure.